what you went through with cancer. Explain what the doc initially thought it was, and then how it quickly progressed from there when you first realized something was wrong.
Well, because it was misdiagnosed when I first sort of felt that there was some sort of, something wrong down there, and they said it was epididymitis, and they gave me some antibiotics, and we went off and filmed a bunch of episodes of the MTV show while I was waiting for these antibiotics to kick in, and then they never kicked in. So I went back to the doctor again, and he said, "Oh, she's sorry, my bad. It was actually cancer." So it's made me kind of very conscious of, my health and my awareness of, I'm always kind of like I said, when COVID happened, I took it real seriously, because not only is it possible to get sick, but it's also possible to get sick and then be told that you're not sick, or it's complicated. It's not just sort of a easy black and white thing to understand, and even a doctor can not diagnose you properly. So yeah.
What was the single scariest moment during that period?
Well, it was definitely like the moment of realization that I could potentially die from this. I was sort of sitting there, sort of devastated, because the show was like, kind of my life at that point, and I realized I was going to have to stop the show.
This f***ing sucks. This is going to f***ing suck. Seriously.
It was sort of this sort of devastating thing where it's like, what the hell's going to happen here? I mean, it just seemed like such a bizarre curveball to be getting testicular cancer at this time, after everything had led me to this moment where things were going great, and then I get testicular cancer. So I just assumed the worst, was the assumption was, if I got testicular cancer, well, I'm probably not going to survive it either. Right?
You really thought that?
I pretty much thought that. You can't help but go there. I mean, you're sitting there, you've got cancer in your body, you're looking at the statistics, and you go, okay, they're pretty favorable, but it's not 100%,
And so it was a 3 or 4 year actually recovery process, as I understand it, because and I think the public was probably less aware of the stress and the pain you were in at the time, and then I guess there was nerve damage connected to some of the surgery. So what did that recovery process entail?
No, it was extreme pain, really. Waking up from the lymph node dissection was really the one that was the pain, not the test. Strangely, it's, surprisingly, it's not the testicular cancer operation. Removing the testicles is pretty easy, right? They just go in and they cut you up here, up in your abdomen, and they go down and they just kind of shuck it out like an oyster, as I've said in past stand-up performances, but it's sort of like, it's not too invasive of a surgery. But the lymph nodes dissection, where they had to go in and check my lymph nodes just to see if there was any cancer in there. And so I elected to do that, and they took it out, and I did not have cancer in my lymph nodes, so I did not have to have chemotherapy. But the surgery itself was so shockingly painful when I came out of it, and then it really probably took many, many, many years actually to really fade. It sort of went from extreme pain to dull pain, and then you're sort of dealing with a dull pain for the next 5 years or more of your life, which sort of becomes normal. But in those initial years, it was pretty traumatic, to be honest with you, because you're sort of, when I was hosting Saturday Night Live, I've never talked about this publicly before. I sort of allude to it a little bit in the documentary that's coming out, but I don't even get into detail, but a little more detail is this, your entire body has just basically been through a traumatic thing, and now you're sort of somewhat in pain, but also exhausted. I had a lot of energy issues. And at the same time, you're also terrified, because you're like, oh my God, is this going to stop? Is this going to go away? And then you're also, at that moment in my life, had a lot of attention on me. I'm hosting Saturday Night Live. You have to show up and be, happy and positive and funny. And in your mind, you're scared that you're, you're not recovering and you're in pain, and you don't want to really talk about that. You want to sort of, there was this sort of idea, I think society has changed a lot since then, but there was this idea of like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm weak, or I don't want to look like I'm sick, so I have to pretend that I'm completely recovered instantly, you know, because I want to work and I want to, you know, take advantage of all these great opportunities that are here in front of me. And so I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, any less funny, happy, or you know, alive than I was 6 months ago when my show was on the air. So you're sort of struggling through gritted teeth as you're trying to pretend that you're doing great, but really you're not.
So how would you privately cope with that at the time?
Well, it was tough. It was tough. All gamut of all emotions. You know, scared, sad, angry. You know, physically in pain, and at the same time you're kind of, you know, getting hit by all sorts of different sort of things from, you know, just the position that I was in with the show at the time. So it was very difficult to navigate, you know.
Because everybody wants a piece of you commercially, and
and also like the move when Freddy Got Fingered came out, got the bad reviews, and then things weren't necessarily. Everything wasn't going great all of a sudden, you know. You had a lot of eyeballs on me at that moment, you know, with the cancer and the show and the movie and personal relationship with Drew and all that stuff. It was kind of like, you know, and so then you're sort of trying to put on a brave face, but really inside you're kind of like, you know, oh my God, this is not that pleasant, you know, having my, you know, this sort of burning sensation running down my entire spine, basically, is what it felt like. It felt like my entire spinal cord was sort of like, had like hot chili pepper poured all over it for about, you know, 2 or 3 years, and they didn't understand why I was still in pain, you know. It was sort of, you know, very, very odd, you know.
Was there a single lowest point for you during that period?
Just sort of a good year there where I was just kind of really just terrified that I was going to be in this kind of pain for the rest of my life, and I was feeling that I wasn't going to be able to kind of keep doing what I love to do, which is perform and be funny. And you gotta be in a good mood when you're doing comedy. You gotta be happy. You gotta have, you know, a smile on your face. You gotta feel good physically. And it was hard for me to do that. I had to kind of power through there. So it was just terrifying, you know. But
who do you confide in, or is there, like, back then, was there somebody you were truly kind of sharing?
I think my parents have been extremely important to me in my life. Like, they've always been people that you know, my mom and dad are there for me always. I trust their judgment. Yeah. And I value it. And they've always guided me well through things. They've always made a lot of decisions with their advice and counsel. So it's been good.
If somebody was in that same position, debating whether or not to do what you had done with the lymph nodes, would you recommend it, or would you say,
I would
hold off?
I would recommend it. Having gone through that pain actually has made me who I am in a certain extent. You know, like I'm a different person because of it, right? And so, and I like who I am now, believe it or not. You know, I mean, you may wonder why that would be the case, but I do think it's given me a different sort of perspective on life, having to go through something that challenging, you know, which is good. So, you know, I hate to say it to people, but if you get your lymph node dissection, you'll find out whether you have to have chemo or not right away. You might have to endure like 3 or 4 or 5 years of extreme pain, but then 20 years later, you'll be a person that you might actually be happy with because of it. So I think it's an individual choice between someone and their doctor, because it's too complicated. And there's probably been medical advancements and stuff that have been made since then that probably would make it easier to make that choice too. So
right.
Mm-hmm. It's really complicated. I get asked a lot about testicular cancer from people that have just gotten it, and you know, I give my opinions, but I always say, go to your doctor, talk to your doctor, do your own research, don't listen to me.
Although it is, whenever, I would imagine if you're somebody in that position, it's valuable to have the benefit of talking to somebody who's gone through it.
And it's young guys, obviously, get it, and it's younger people get testicular cancer. You wouldn't think you're getting cancer when you're 15 years old. So if you get a pain in your testicle, often what happens with young people is they don't go tell anybody because they're embarrassed, and then they walk around with cancer for a year, and then it's spread too much, and they actually could die from it, right? So I've had a lot of people come up to me over the years at my stand-up shows and say they went to the hospital because of this, and because of this cancer special that we did on MTV and diagnosed it. And so I've had quite a few emotional sort of reunions and interactions with people who kind of felt that episode of the show kind of saved their life. It's been quite heavy at times, actually.
Which is to be the best feeling ever, though,
a good
right?
feeling, yeah, for sure, yeah.